Hey, Luminary, it's August Business Starcast and everything you need to know so that you can recalibrate your practice.
Welcome to Star Powered Astrology for Changemakers. I'm Leslie Tagorda, your guide, a Hawaii born Filipino Jewish astrologer who loves navigating visionaries like you through the spiritual journey of your work so that you can be inspired to lead by your chart and become the luminary leader you were born to be.
Hello, hello, Luminary. Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm mostly saying welcome back for myself because I just got back to San Francisco. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that I'm back in my little Harry Potter closet of a recording office. And it's shortly after our Aquarius full moon, the exact Aquarius full moon. But when you look up in the sky tonight, it's going to be round and brilliant as the day before, the day of, the day after the full moon. We have just this glorious full moon. So I am still feeling all of the feels. Yay, Aquarius. Whoever said that Aquariuses don't feel, they don't understand how Aquarians feel, right? Aquarians have a little bit of a detachment. That doesn't mean that they don't feel. Oh, they do feel. And especially when they're pissed off, they're really, really feeling things. So, I want to talk a little bit today about what's coming up on the August horizon, as well as do a little bit of reflections of our Aquarius full moon that we have today. We're still feeling that light. So, if you're listening to this within, 72 hours, this is just a great time to do a lot of releasing and a lot of reflection. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about that before we dive in. I spent the last 31 days in Hawaii. Yes, I'm super, super grateful. And if you've been reading my emails, just kind of like my journey of reclaiming back my joy of being in Hawaii. My mom passed away about 6 months ago, and I didn't really realize the impact that it was having on me, just kind of the grief, the resentment, all of the things. And during those 31 days in Hawaii, I definitely took a conscious effort to deep dive into all of the feelings that I had, especially coming back to Hawaii when I quote unquote didn't need to be back. It was my first trip that I didn't have any business to do in Hawaii except to just have a good time, spend time with my family, and reclaim my joy. That was my mission while I was in Hawaii. But I have to say that, there's not just like we expect like this joy to be like this destination, like this one thing that we have and that we're holding and we finally made it. But there's really no such thing as just like that perfect piece of joy that is uninterrupted by a little annoyances, a little anger, a little resentments. And every time I go back to Hawaii, I get a little more and more and more pissed off just by some of the people that have decided to claim Hawaii as their home, people that decide to call themselves like Hawaiian, even if they had just moved there and they have like not a single drop of Native Hawaiian blood. I come back to talking about this a lot because it's a really part of just this mixed identity that I have. I am from Hawaii, born and raised, but I do not have a drop of Native Hawaiian blood in me. And I'm super conscious of never claiming that I'm Hawaiian because I'm not Native Hawaiian. Although I respect and uphold all of the love and the respect and the aloha of the islands, I would never call myself Hawaiian. And so I had a number of incidents this trip with people who are actually just like very, very ignorant. And I'm sharing this story so that we can all reflect on our places in the world and so that we can decide on where we want to be, who we want to be, and how we show respect when we go into different places with different cultures. Where am I going with this story? I think I'm just kind of pissed. And right now, like where the astrology is, like Mars is at the top of the chart. Mars has been Mars has been trining with Jupiter. And so my feels are really, really big, but I want to make this into a learning lesson. So on the very last night of our stay in Hawaii, we got invited to a friend's barbecue. And he was super excited to have us over for this barbecue because he wanted me to be introduced to some of his friends. He thought that I was going to really get along with some of his friends. And there was this woman there that as soon as I arrived, she came up to me, she was super excited and she introduced herself and she started telling me her entire life story. And it turns out she is an educator. She is a high school teacher who has lived in Hawaii for about a year. And because there's a shortage of teachers in Hawaii, she easily found a job in Hawaii teaching in high school. And she started proceeding to tell me her entire life about, or at least from the last year, about how it was so difficult for her to gain the trust of her students because she's blonde, she's white, she there's a lot of white people in Hawaii. And I'm not saying that all white people are bad. That's not what I'm saying at all. But she was just recognizing that in Hawaii, where white people are the minority, and especially with kind of the local culture or like the native culture, how there's a lot of distrust, especially when a white person comes into the community without, without permission or without respect, all of these things. So anyway, this woman proceeds to tell me like her entire life story about how she really wants to make this connection and this respect. And she looks at all the other local teachers and how they're doing all these amazing things about the culture and taking them to like tarot fields to help like volunteer with upkeeping the tarot, or all of these different Hawaiian cultural activities that her other teachers take their students on. And she was kind of complaining to me how she felt super ignorant and how she didn't know what to do and how her students really didn't trust her. And she just kept on talking and talking and talking. And so I was like, well, have you been up to the Poly Lookout? And she's like, oh, yeah, when I first got here, I went to the Poly Lookout. And I was like, well, do you know the significance of the Poly Lookout? And she's like, no, I'm so ignorant. And so I tried to tell her the significance of the Poly Lookout simply because the day before, my son, my 7-year-old son, and my husband and I, we went to the Poly Lookout and we listened to this podcast called Native. It's an app actually, but it has all of these stories called Native Stories, where it gives you these very locational stories of the land and why the Poly Lookout was so significant as a battlefield of Kamehameha I. If you want to hear that story, let me know. I'll send you some resources. It's a really significant battle. Where Kamehameha unified the Hawaiian Islands, and it was the last battle on the Hawaiian Islands that was made by and made only by Hawaiians, no other foreign interference. So I'm trying to get in like a word, a sentence, and trying to educate her because she says how so ignorant she was and that oh, I wish I knew, I wish she knew. But the thing is, she didn't actually wish she knew. She never once asked me a single question. She never let me speak up. She was just talking at me and telling me about how all of these like locals were not respecting her. And I think she was trying to get permission from me because like I'm born and raised in Hawaii. I don't live there now, but I very much embody the local culture. And I just like was looking at her and I was doing all my best to just like not roll my eyes. And even as I'm recording this podcast, I have like my hand on my forehead because I'm just like shaking my head at how ignorant this woman was. So the lesson learned for me too, right, is that when I go into a new culture, it is not to freaking just talk, 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 talk. It's actually to listen, to hear what other people are saying, to be curious and ask about each other and not just like take up all of the space and extract all of the energy. Okay. So for us to all be good citizens, Aquarius full moon is not only to say, like, how can we break free and be our individual selves? But like how can we also be contributors of society and be participants of society and not just takers of society. Okay, so I'm just going to give my PSA right now, just since I'm in a rant and a rave right now, thanks to Mars trining with Jupiter and, the sun and the moon still opposing and Mercury and Saturn still opposing. I have a lot on my mind about how people just take from the Hawaiian culture. And I know that the story of this Hawaiian culture is not just for people of Hawaii, but of so many Native communities around the country, around the world. So if we are a benefactor of Native communities and Native cultures, please do your due diligence, be respectful, and be part of the community. Don't just expect to take from the community and wonder why you're not respected. Okay, sorry, I'll get off my little box right now. Let's get to the astrology. But I'm hearkening it to the astrology for being amped up right now and just being just like, oh my goodness. Okay, so let's get back to August. If you've been reading my Starcasts, I've been changing the Starcast up a little bit just to make it a little more digestible and easy to listen to. So I want to give you just the highlights of what's coming up for us in August. And, July, that was a hard month. I don't know. I feel like I'm not speaking for everybody, but everybody that I know, it's been challenging. We had the nodes shift axes, we had our Venus retrograde start, we had all these things going on in July that was quite a shakeup. And now we get to integrate as we move from Leo season into Virgo season. We get to recalibrate, right? So now that you're integrating, right, the value of pleasure into your work and daily practice, thanks to our Venus retrograde, it's time to realign your practices and your rituals throughout all of the systems that operate in your life and your business and your work. Now, to awaken your energy and senses, all the way from your morning routines that set you up to be energized, to the way you delegate to support your team and have your team support you, to your weekly and your monthly schedules, that is now whole with both work, rest, and play. So we open up August with our first full moon. We get two this month, our Aquarius full moon that happened a little bit before this recording, and Venus a week into her retrograde cycle, and Mercury entering their shadow zone of an upcoming retrograde cycle. All of this just in this first week. And then by the time August ends, we'll have Mercury, Venus, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune all in retrograde motion. It's truly a time to take our RX, our medicine. Lastly, we close off August with a beautiful Pisces Blue Moon. So, this month, if you just take in all of the energies and that vibe, what will you recalibrate in your practice so that you can feel adaptable, creative, passionate, and synthesize everything that you know up to now? Now, I love the word synthesis for Virgo. I know we're not into Virgo season yet, but we're building up to that. But to synthesize is to be able to take in everything and to adapt. One of the things about adaptability is that the more adaptability, that mutability, that flow, that ability to change, the more adaptability you have, the better off you are because you're not stuck in things and things don't like knock you off course. Right. So your adaptability quotient is to the test, right? Because, like I said, we're still in our Venus retrograde, just simply 1 week into her complete 8 week retrograde cycle, and Mercury now in the shadow zone. With these two personal planets in their realignment phases, right? Those retrogrades are the necessary parts of our reshifting, especially when there are those personal planets where we feel each of those processes so deeply. August is your month to get to calibrate, and your adaptability quotient gets to rise this month. In fact, by the time Mercury shifts into reverse on the same day that the sun enters Virgo, so that's August 23rd, Uranus will also put the brakes to station before entering their retrograde cycle on August 28th. So I'm suspecting as we get into August, things are going to kind of dig in again. So really take these first few weeks of August to let go, recalibrate, resynthesize, and get at least your morning practice to be fully energizing. If you've been like really thinking about like, hey, how can I get back into a morning routine and morning practice? This would be a great time to do that. So I want you to add a reminder to your calendar for the second half of August so that you can remind yourself to be flexible and open to the necessities of change. That's your adaptability quotient. Especially as we head into Virgo season, to adapt is in her highest priority as a mutable sign, although she can easily get stuck in details with her hypercritical eye, right? Virgo will remind us, and I'll remind you again, that to practice is to make perfect, and that there's no such thing as perfection. To instead, the process of perfection, to perfect, is to make something as good as possible, to bring in all the desirable elements, qualities, and characteristics, to make changes, to adapt, to shift as time requires. The more easily you can shift, the more successful you can be in both life and work. That is your adaptability quotient. And the higher it is, the more prepared for success and growth in your changing work you will be. So this month, right, we have Venus retrograde all month. Venus, well, I'm looking at the chart right now. Venus retrograde is continuing to make almost, until she started off making a yod, a finger of God with both Neptune and Pluto, and she's going to be ending Venus retrograde. When she retraces back in January, this yod is going to be coming back. So if you listen to that Venus retrograde masterclass episode, I was talking really about that yod as being the main signature of this Venus retrograde timeline, or the Venus retrograde as a whole, right? Neptune, our divinity, Pluto, our power, and with Venus making that finger to God, our pleasure, right? So that when we think about that yod and the significance of that finger to God, sometimes that's what a yod is called, your pleasure connects you to your divine. So I really want to remind you that as we open up August, this yod is still very, very, very much in play. And that as you are reassessing your pleasure of this Venus retrograde that still continues on, that as you can value and cultivate and make time every day for your pleasure, this is going to connect you to your divinity, your ability to transform, and your ability to empower yourself with your most authentic inner energy. Gotta love that. Okay, so we also have a Mercury retrograde beginning in Virgo that starts on the same day the sun enters Virgo on August 23rd. So make sure you mark that on your calendar. Then we have Mars leaving Virgo and entering Libra on August 27th. So for those 4 days from August 23rd through August 27th, we're going to have the sun, Mercury, and Mars all in Virgo. It's going to really be a great time to get your systems going. And then at the end of the month on August 28th, Uranus steps on the brake to hit reverse for its annual retrograde cycle. I'll be talking more about that soon. Then we have our lunations, of course, today on August 1st. We have our full moon in Aquarius, Aquarius of 9 degrees. Then 2 weeks later, on August 16th, we have our new moon in Leo. And then we get a blue moon at the very tail end of August. We get a beautiful full Pisces moon. I'll be talking more about those moons later on in the month. So let's talk a little bit about today's full moon. I call this full moon Love Yourself to Break through. Now, on a full moon, it is time to assess, it's time to see everything in its full light, that illumination, that understanding. And so, right before we started our podcast, I was looking back at my new moon intention. So, the new moon that happened on January 22nd, 2023, we had a new moon at Aquarius of 1 degree, super early in Aquarius, where you were creating your intentions around your Aquarius ideals, your Aquarius visions, your social impact, how you wanted to contribute into society. Well, our Aquarius full moon, now we get to review how far you've gotten on your intentions, right? So take a look at your intentions. I hope that you keep an intention journal because it's so good to look back and say, ooh, I'm on track. Or, ooh, I need to shift. I'm not exactly where I need to be. And so the Leo sun, right? Leo and Aquarius are polar opposites. They need each other like yin and yang. The Leo sun shines so brightly onto that Aquarius moon because Leo sun loves being in its home sign of Leo. So it's shining so brightly on that Aquarius moon and showing you all the ways you've chosen to fit in and conform instead of flying your colorful, bold, quote unquote, freak flag. Now, your freak flag makes you one of a kind, so amazing. Okay, I hope you're flying that flag in just the way that you need to be. Even if you've done your work of breaking free of societal shoulds, there's still more work to be done. Now, Venus retrograde, of course, also in Leo, has you reigniting your internal flame, your internal, eternal flame of passion that adds joy and gratitude to all you do. Now, this gratitude is your key to breaking through. Indeed. That's like one of the things that really got me through the last 31 days is that I actually restarted my gratitude journal. I had fallen off my gratitude journal for about 5, 6 years now. And so I bought myself a pretty new journal that had all these rainbows on it. And every night before I went to sleep, no matter how tired I was, I put just a couple of little bullet points of the things that I was grateful for. And like meeting Jason Momoa in Costco, yes, 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 super grateful for that. And so I absolutely know that when we can raise our vibration, I know that sounds so woo, but it really, really works. And keeping a little gratitude journal is going to help you. So, gratitude is indeed your key to breaking through any things that are still holding you back from being uniquely you. Remember, Mars and Jupiter, they're still in trine. They're adding fuel to your fire so you can embody this gratitude at every level of your physical, emotion, and energetic body so you can radiate it forth. So, even though I was sharing that kind of like irate story of that interaction, I'm really grateful for that interaction because it made me see things so clearly. And so, maybe there's something like that for you now, too. So you are now feeling in your whole body this fiery liberation and purification. Now, fiery, right? If it is anger and resentment, like let that go. Express your thoughts, share your ideas, right? Simply by sharing that story that just like made me irritated, but there was a learning lesson from it, purified that situation for me. Like I really had to like do a lot of like energetic cleaning. And I talked to my husband later. I was like, oh gosh, did you get this vibe from this woman? And he's like, yeah, I couldn't. I was like, you didn't rescue me. Anyway, I digress. So, you also have so much fire within you this full moon. I want you to radiate it forth and spark it in others. Now, remember, I want you to go back to that Capricorn full moon last year. If you were listening to these podcasts, I was asking you to break free of a trap, a box that you created for yourself, right? That was like that word that you are going to break through, those traps that you create for yourself, that inner oppressor. Now, this Aquarius full moon, may you break through the expectations and unquestioning conformities of society that keep you heavy and tied down to unlock your creativity, passion, and self love. All right, my friends, that is the full moon. Well, my friends, I am so grateful for you. Thank you for listening and let me know what you want to hear about. What's on your mind about integrating astrology in your personal awakening and your outward leadership in your change making work. Until soon, bye. As a human design projector, my energy shines more brightly because of people like you who share my work. If you enjoy this podcast and want to help build a movement of innovative astrology and leadership and spark the intuitive revolution, please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, or better yet, share this podcast with your change-making besties. We will all shine brighter together as we create the future we want to see.